Most of the stereotypes surrounding Reddit and its user base are extremely negative. However, a more positive association made to the platform are the elusive, wholesome Reddit moments. The website has been known to collectivize, come together, and effect change for a greater good on occasion. Just like most humans, within the soul of each Redditor is a desire to make the world a better place, mostly in the hopes of collecting some sweet karma points in the process. Unfortunately, this dynamic has made way for bad faith actors to take advantage of the website. That means that no subreddit is safe from scammers, beggars, and fraudsters running amok in their communities. Today we'll be discussing some of the most notable examples of this, and try to figure out what makes Reddit the perfect place to beg for money. But before we go any further in today's video, I want to do a live DNA test result. Not because I'm unsure if I'm the father of any children, but rather because I have a sponsorship with MyHeritage. MyHeritage is a leading global family history and DNA service that makes exploring your family history easier than ever. So with that, join me as I look at the results of my DNA test. Step 1, you have them deliver a cheek swab directly to your house where you do the little test. Step 2, you send it back to them and then they'll use their system to discover where your ancestors are from. This helps you discover your origins and find new relatives, and covers more regions than any other test on the market. I went through this process myself and can confirm it's extremely simple. So today I wanted to share a couple of the results of what I found out about my ancestors. According to the map they have, I'm about 30% Scottish and Welsh, 30% Irish, and then the rest is just a combination of other European sources. And honestly, looking at me, I don't think anyone would be surprised by those results. But it also has a timeline that shows that a lot of my ancestors came over and moved to the northeastern part of the United States, which is also spot on correct. To get a DNA test for starting at only $19, click the link in the description down below, or use code MARS at checkout, or even just click the QR code on the screen right now. A big thanks again for MyHeritage for sponsoring today's video. I feel like men's rights used to be one of the core principles of the average Redditor. At least when I sometimes used the site back in the day, they would always be fighting for issues like circumcision, performative feminism, and fighting over if there was a pay gap between men and women. As a result, a sort of brotherhood has developed amongst Redditors. For thousands of men, Reddit is sadly the only place they can go to talk about their feelings, and this birthed r Ask Men. The thing is, some insidious individuals sought to take advantage of this brotherhood and extract cash donations from these MGTOW users. A user named Fruit Loaves took to the forum to describe an abusive relationship between himself and his newlywed wife. Shortly after their marriage started, the user's spouse became prone to emotional outbursts, in which she called him names and emotionally guilted him into never leaving the house. As the years went on, things only got worse as she became increasingly violent, not limited to throwing objects and hitting the OP with her fists. Things got to the point where he threatened to call the police on multiple occasions, which was met with threats of self-harm and life ruination. To make matters worse, the wife had also gone behind the OP's back, telling her friends and family that he was actually the abusive partner. Understandably, Fruit Loaves had reached his boiling point, and decided he would pack up his things and leave while his wife was away on a business trip. The user makes it a point to mention his financial situation, claiming to have pawned off his wedding ring to afford money for gas. His plan was to drive from Provo, Utah all the way to Augusta, Georgia, but simply did not have enough to afford the trip. With this, kind-hearted Redditors began offering their assistance in the form of cash donations. Dude, let me know when you hit the Alabama-Georgia line. I'm assuming you're taking I-20. I've got $100 you can have, no strings. I can chip in as well. Don't have PayPal, Venmo, etc., but can figure it out. Reading that second one back now, I don't think he actually intended to give the person any money, but just wanted the upvotes from acting like he would. The forum was truly serving its purpose. Men from all across the globe were coming together to help a fellow man in need during trying times. Unfortunately though, it appeared that this entire post was an elaborate ruse to exploit good faith Samaritans. A moderator of the Ask Men subreddit posted and pinned a comment to the thread that reads, "Wanna explain why you were a woman 4 days ago, OP?" Attached is a separate thread posted just days prior from the same account, this time from the perspective of an abused female partner escaping her boyfriend. Both of them described a situation in which their financial woes could be easily resolved. The female OP has just enough money for a plane ticket. The male OP has just enough money for gas, meaning that they will be left with nothing by the time they escape their abuser. Even a small donation of $10 or $15 could be the difference between going to bed hungry or not, which this shameless fraudster seemed to deeply understand. Something they also understood was Reddit's strong adoration for cats, both of which are mentioned as fellow victims within the original posts. Most notable, however, is that neither of these threads directly ask for cash donations. Rather, they ask other logistical questions about how to manage their new lives once they officially move on. All of these details are intentionally done to convincingly manipulate the reader to send them some money, and they both succeeded in doing so. The user was able to get away with this by posting their sob stories, allowing the threads to generate donations for a few days before deleting the threads and creating a new one later on down the line. This would have gone unnoticed if not for one skeptical Redditor backtracing their activity on Reddit archival websites.
And I know who it's coming from because I backtraced it!
It's uncertain how much money was fully donated to the user, but a paper trail of activity demonstrates that they had been running this scam for over 8 months before finally being caught. And considering the massive amount of netizens offering their assistance, it's safe to say this fraudster pocketed thousands of dollars. One victim in particular was a 17-year-old who sent around 440 USD in cryptocurrency, further demonstrating the exploitative nature of this scam. The user was eventually banned from the website altogether, although the damage was never fully undone. While Reddit is considered a safe haven for persecuted men, it offers solace for all walks of life as well. This includes a struggling mother looking for guidance or even cold hard cash during their time of need. In 2020, various parenting-related subreddits began seeing an uptick in frequency, particularly in the form of online panhandling. Due to the strenuous conditions of the global shutdown, those who were already financially struggling grew desperate for assistance, and would take to these subreddits asking fellow parents for assistance in feeding their children. While a good portion of these posts were likely made in good faith, there were undeniably some who sought to exploit the kindness of others for their own financial gain. Those who frequented subreddits like Ask Parents, Raising Kids, and New Parents took note of this increased amount of online begging. While this wasn't entirely out of the ordinary, patterns began emerging that couldn't be ignored. Many of these posts were created by a woman named Nikki Trevor, who would become one of the most prolific Reddit scam artists in the website's history. The earliest public-facing example of this scheme dates back to May of 2020, in the preemie subreddits, a forum for parents of children who were born prematurely. The original thread, which has since been deleted, describes a mother of 4 who had recently escaped her abusive husband with her children. In the heat of fleeing, the mother claims to have forgotten her premature infant's specialized medical formula and had no money to purchase more. She was becoming increasingly concerned that her child would starve to death. Without explicitly begging for donations, she emphasized that she only needed $23 to afford more formula, a small sacrifice that could make all the difference for someone living in more favorable circumstances. Commenters suggested that she take her child to the hospital where she would be assisted by a social worker. That said, things became suspicious as she outright refused to do so, and insisted she simply needed the money. So you're literally saying that the hospital would rather let your newborn child die than use their formula earmarked for labor and delivery? If you have 0 formula for a 7-pound baby, this is an emergency. Go back. In spite of the red flags, it appears that some bystanders were willing to lend a helping hand. But Nikki would continue to create more posts on different accounts, describing eerily similar circumstances with only slight differences. A new Redditor by the name of SwagMama2445 claimed to be a mother of 4 escaping her abusive husband. This time she posted the story to a subreddit dedicated to polycystic ovary syndrome. Rather than struggling to feed a premature baby, she described her situation and the compounding struggles her alleged illness had caused. In spite of the similarities, these two posts would have been nearly impossible to connect on their own. But with every new thread, Nikki was weaving an intricate web that would tie all of them back to her. Due to incompetence on the scammer's part, she had very few methods of receiving payments across all of her profiles, 2 separate Cash App accounts, and a singular Venmo named Nikki Trevor Dudley. With this, sleuths were able to find a crazy amount of other posts. One thread claimed that she was a single mother of 2 preparing for her son's open heart surgery. Another claimed to be a recently widowed mother of 3. But no matter how much the stories varied, they always shared 2 common traits. 1, they never explicitly asked for money, and 2, they always accepted donations when offered. By July of 2020, Redditors had gathered enough evidence to confidently identify 14 different accounts that all belonged to the same person. Nikki Trevor has not been confirmed to be the culprit's identity. However, it is the only consistent alias used across her payment methods. And with this, Redditors continued to identify more and more accounts in the comments over the next few days, indicating that Nikki had not been deterred by this callout. Only a few months later in September, moderators of the Our Assistance subreddit compiled nearly 100 separate accounts they firmly believed to be her. They shared similar typing habits, mannerisms, and stories. Nikki had also wisened up and created even more payment accounts across multiple platforms in the hopes of covering up her tracks. Unfortunately for her, she was still not smart enough to avoid overlapping accounts with the same payment details. In the process, she had scammed potentially hundreds of different users out of thousands of dollars. Some sent $10 or $20, while others sent hundreds. The community was able to step in and suspend each account she made, typically in quick response to their creation. And that's where the trail runs cold for Nikki Trevor. It's possible she gave up and got herself a real job, or it's possible she divorced herself from any identifiable information and started from scratch, meaning that she very well could still be engaging in this elaborate scam to this very day. Both of the subjects discussed thus far share a similar trait. They use dozens if not hundreds of different accounts to beg for money online. But some of these beggars manage to cause controversy on just one single account. Just about every major city has its own dedicated subreddit. This is a hub for local citizens to ask each other questions about living in the area, but it also serves as a lightning rod for community outreach. There's a natural desire to help your neighbor in a time of need, and some took advantage of this dynamic. The user Hogtown Homeless describes his life living on the streets of Toronto. He establishes that his situation was brought about by poor financial management and an untimely termination of his job, which he claims was in the tech industry. He also clarified that he wasn't a drug addict, rather an innocent victim of circumstance. The Redditors empathized with his situation and felt compelled to help out their fellow Torontonian. Kind-hearted Redditors offered him gift cards, library access, hot meals, clothes, and even new employment opportunities. Hogtown posted a subsequent update to the subreddit a few days later, claiming to have received a handful of various gifts, including a laptop. He thanked the users for their kindness and expressed optimism for the future. I've had the honor of meeting so many of you and had made new friends in the process. Once I'm back on my feet and have my finances well in order, I'm taking you all out to dinner. I don't know how to repay you guys for what you have done for me. I didn't even ask for help. I just wanted my story out there and you all decided to open up to me and provide me with whatever you could. Unfortunately, his stroke of luck would quickly run out, and in the third update to the Toronto subreddit, Hogtown revealed that he had been mugged. At about 2:30ish, I was woken up by a guy and asked if I had any money. I told him I could spare $5 if he needed it. He then pulls out a small knife and tells me to just hand him my wallet. Naturally, I did. He took my Metro Pass, a Subway gift card, a Tim Hortons gift card which only had 50 cents on it, and what cash I had on me, which was close to almost 200 that I was saving to get a few nights in a hostel. He asked what was in my bag and I just told him I only had clothes in there. Thankfully he didn't check, so he didn't get my laptop or cell phone. Cell phone battery was dead anyways, so then he just took off. While some were sympathetic to the user's continued misfortunes, people were beginning to become suspicious. Users began pointing out the many inconsistencies in his story. The first thing that stands out is the fact that he hadn't lost his phone or laptop during the robbery, 2 things that enabled him to connect to Reddit and seek support. People also pointed out his strange behavior and lack of initiative. Hogtown had claimed to possess a wide array of different skills in his field, and many found it shocking he was unable to find a new job. I'm a software developer, and last time when he listed out the skills he had, they were skills that you'd be able to get a job yesterday with. Like, you could literally walk into a temp agency and they'd have a job for you right then and there. This user also questioned why Hogtown would need clothing. Just because he couldn't afford to pay his rent didn't mean that he lost his wardrobe in the process. Moreover, one user had implored Hogtown to apply to a tech company they worked at, claiming that they were hiring and that he would almost certainly be accepted. Unfortunately, or conveniently depending on how you look at it, the company allegedly never got back to him. Another user claimed to have directly connected him to their boss, but the homeless man had completely ignored their emails. More broadly, people were growing apathetic to his circumstances. This was only made worse when people realized that he had already begun searching for a new one-bedroom apartment with a $1,000 to $1,500 range. This was bizarre considering that he had only recently found a new job, was still yet to be paid, and was supposedly in the red on his bank account. Hogtown claimed that $1,000 a month felt appropriate for his new projected salary, which he revealed to be $67,000 a year. Users pointed out that renting out a single room with other people would be a much more quick, reliable, and cheap method of finding shelter. The eventual deletion of the rental post only increased suspicion. This brings us to a few hours later when one user spoke up, claiming to know the OP in real life. So I've refrained from posting, but I'm 99% sure I know this person, and he is a pathological liar, a stalker, was/is an alcoholic, and stole from his friends. I don't want to see him on the streets, but he is 150% responsible, and not for the reasons he stated. He's stolen from his friends, lied constantly about some very disturbing things, and I just want to give people a fair warning to not trust him with your money or anything of value. If you give him shelter, make sure there is nothing of value around. It can't be said for certain if this claim is accurate, but it was widely taken as fact by the community at large. I do feel it's necessary to point out that nothing discussed thus far is 100% provably malicious behavior. It's possible that Hogtown Homeless is a genuinely financially incompetent person. It's not surprising that someone who found themselves in the situation would go on to make further poor decisions related to money management. Although even the most charitable framing paints a sad picture. Instead of taking advantage of resources readily available like homeless shelters and food banks, he sympathy baited online for handouts. Hogtown was not fully truthful at a minimum, but other Reddit e-beggars take this to a whole new level. In December of 2025, a user posted to the San Diego subreddit requesting money for a hot meal. I've prepared myself for a rainy day. My stomach is empty. I wanted to know if someone has an extra food code or coupon. I'll really appreciate you. It appears one user sent them a coupon code for a free Chipotle bowl, which the OP eventually uploaded an image of to the thread. Other users inquired about how to send money directly, in which they provided their email address for PayPal as well as their Venmo username. On the surface, nothing seemed wrong about the situation. However, users who frequented various Southern California subreddits began noticing that these payment details were popping up all over the place, and bizarrely enough, were coming from entirely separate Reddit burner accounts. CatTrainer007, SubjectDraw7573, and Beautiful Long 6571 are just a few of the seemingly endless accounts requesting assistance, and providing the same payment details for said help. Other posts saw them using nearly identical photographs, sleeping on the streets in a military green sleeping bag and prominently featuring a similar suitcase present in other pictures. This person also had a particular affinity for Chipotle, frequently begging for assistance in purchasing a warm Mexican meal. Need bowl, please. Hi guys, I wanted to know if anyone has extra points and would be willing to help me with a bowl, please. Can't find food today. I'm just not doing so good in life. Thank you and happy Memorial Weekend. As you can probably tell, they also clearly speak in broken English. This includes referring to money as coins, another key marker that proved that all these accounts were the same person. This would later be confirmed as people began calling out the mysterious beggar. I think it's important to note for you guys that I've sent this person money before. They were using a different account and said their name was Tony, not Kimmy. The Venmo they provided in these threads is the same. Do with that what you will. Hi miss, are you help me one time with a loan of laundry, right? I forgot you name, but yes is me. I'm still fight to get better. And I remember you give me a lot of advice. Unfortunately, can't get better yet. The identity of this individual is mostly a mystery. However, it appears he is a slender Asian male who often goes by the name How. All of this information was compiled and documented in a megathread shared to various South California subreddits. This greatly infuriated the mysterious culprits, who began directly messaging the thread creator and insulting him. I just say this. Wow, you really obsessed with me. Did I hurt your ego? Now that he was fully exposed, the beggar created a new Venmo in the hopes of throwing people off his trail. Unfortunately for him, he continued to use the same Reddit accounts, and people very quickly picked up on his plan. All of this being said, some users believe that How was not as malicious as some were painting him to be. It really did seem like he was genuinely homeless, and seemed to be struggling with his mental health. After all, he mostly begged for burrito bowls and not money. I lost my job months ago, and then my partner left. After 2 or 3 months without a stable income, I ended up wandering the streets. I don't know how to get out of this situation. I've been traveling from place to place, looking for support. Sometimes life is very hard to live. It's very possible that How acts the way he does out of a pure incompetence rather than malice. That being said, it's also possible that this persona is crafted to obfuscate his insidious intent. But some take it to a whole new level beyond asking for fast food, such as involving innocent animals in their scheme to farm cash donations from strangers on the internet. If there's one thing any Redditor can agree about, it's their shared affinity for heckin' cute doggos. This dynamic is deeply understood by those looking to take advantage of the Reddit community at large. In particular, there is one individual who became infamous for this tactic, posting hundreds of different threads on various subreddits, all asking for money to buy food for their pupper. The first documented post took place in a subreddit dedicated to Kalamazoo, Michigan. The user OKPlace6908 directly starts with a plea for assistance, asking that someone help them acquire a bag of food for their dog. The user claims to be living in his car with his pup. However, the car has recently broken down, leaving them incapable of making money through DoorDash. Notably, the user directly states that they are at a local McDonald's. They claim to be waiting outside in a red shirt with his dog in case anyone stops by. They also make a caveat to those who cannot meet him in person, offering their Cash App as an alternative. On the surface, this story seems relatively trustworthy, considering that they claim to be reachable in real life at the local McDonald's. But users began noticing eerily similar posts in dozens of other subreddits all across the country. Brockton, Massachusetts, San Francisco, California, Denver, Colorado. All of these posts share the same exact story. This user also did little to hide their digital footprint. Not only would they use the same Cash App account in individual posts, sometimes they wouldn't even bother making a new burner account. Even when they did use a brand new account, most of the usernames contained the name Ashari. Users eventually caught up with this fraudster's scheme and began warning the Reddit community about the situation. Users pointed out that the scammer would always claim to be physically available for help as a way to make them seem more authentic. Most users were probably not willing to mess up their busy schedules browsing Reddit to help in person, and would have preferred to just send some cash and/or Reddit gold to the kind stranger. But the user was not deterred by the call-out thread and continued to beg for donations all across the globe. This emboldened Redditors to track their every move, coordinate reports, and get the account suspended from the platform. This made future begging untenable for the Redditor, but did not prevent others from trying to crowdsource from random communities as well. Star Citizen is a space sim MMO video game. It has been in development for over a decade, but has been in early access for years and developed a cult following. Typically, its subreddit was dedicated solely to discussion of the game. However, when a community member was struck with tragedy, they came together to assist their fellow gamer. A user, Simple Question Bot, had become a prominent fixture on the subreddit around 2016. Sadly, this familiar face of the community had to make a sudden hiatus when his son came down with an illness and needed surgery. The post particularly mentions making difficult financial choices, and a subsequent edit thanks the community for lending a helping hand. The implication here being that some Redditors personally reached out and sent him money to help during his struggle. This wasn't particularly offensive at first, but users became wary nearly a year later when he made another post to the subreddit, describing yet another sick child family member. Posting with mod permission, "My 9-year-old niece has cancer. For the second time, please share everywhere you can, and contribute if at all possible." Attached to this post was a GoFundMe, which has since been deleted. Members of the forum expressed their sympathy, but emphasized their belief that the post should not have been allowed on the subreddits, and questioned the moderator's decision. On top of this, considering SQB's history of making posts related to sick children and receiving cash donations, some question the legitimacy of the story altogether. I know it's for a good cause, but this shouldn't have been approved by the mods. This is not Star Citizen related, and we don't even know if it's real. SQB was quick to clap back at comments sharing this sentiment. "What additional proof do you need? I am happy to provide what I can. And while it's not Star Citizen related, we are a community, and a generous one at that. If we are willing to spend thousands of dollars on digital spaceships, throwing a couple bucks at a sick child shouldn't bother us at all." The entitlement was now too much to ignore. Star Citizen features an expensive shipbuilding system that its users are willing to spend thousands of dollars on. SQB implies that the average player is immensely wealthy. This opens up an entirely new can of worms. Considering that SQB was a prominent fixture of the community, it was evident he also had a decent amount of money. When asked, he claimed to have spent well over $1,000 on in-game purchases. So you're happy to throw $1,700 at a game instead of towards helping your niece, and you expect the rest of the world to throw money towards helping your niece? While people were now dogpiling, I do want to point out that the quote just mentioned is a bit fallacious. SQB could never have foreseen his niece's condition before making the purchases, like when a person with thousands of dollars of tattoos on their body e-beg. Regardless, it does come off as tone-deaf to be asking for donations after spending nearly $2,000 on pixels in a video game. Even more tone-deaf is the fact that SQB openly admitted he would likely crowdsource the community a third time if he really needed to. Is this going to be a permanent place for you to post future financial help requests when your family is in need? Again, no one faults you for trying to help your family, it's just the location. If it's a sick child, maybe. SQB then implied that the only reason he was receiving backlash was because of his reputation as being a sarcastic asshole, although it was far more complicated than that. Users believe this post set a bad precedent, and made way for future posts of this nature to be permitted onto the forum. Regardless, many in the community still bought in, and one user claims that the GoFundMe raised up to $10,000. SQB's account has since been banned from Reddit altogether, although it's not confirmed that it was due to his behavior in the Star Citizen subreddit. While I can't prove the validity of this gamer's claims, in other cases the community has caught a user red-handed. In June of 2020, a now deleted user took to the Ask Me Anything subreddit to discuss their life as a teenage brain cancer victim. "I'm a 14-year-old who has brain cancer and is going to die within 3 weeks. AMA. I was diagnosed at 10 years old and was estimated to have 5 to 15 years left, but the tumor started growing more rapidly, and after I got frequent migraines and was throwing up, it was revealed that the tumor has rapidly grown and spread. Ask me anything." The post was met with thousands of upvotes and comments. Users expressed their sympathy at the young child who was doomed to miss out on so much of his life. Notably, the post was flooded with hundreds of awards. You see, Redditors could spend real money on virtual coins, and then use that currency to place awards on posts they like. Some of them were purely aesthetic, while others awarded users with a premium Reddit subscription or additional coins. The Reddit community had come together to make this dying teenager's last days special with bountiful Reddit karma, and he eventually made an update to the post. Currently in the hospital right now after I started noticing it's becoming quite difficult to move around efficiently. I may have to stop the AMA soon if I'm no longer able to process language and or move around. Or I may have a family member do it for me. I'll keep you guys informed, though I won't be active for a few days. Users were heartbroken by the situation, but were even more devastated when a second edit was made to the post. Sorry guys, but this was fake as f***. I'm 14, but yeah, I love karma, LOL. The story spread far and wide to every corner of the website. Our mildly infuriating, our unpopular opinions, and beyond all created dedicated posts discussing the story. The main point of contention was not just the depravity of lying about such a serious issue, but the fact that he had done so all for Reddit karma. Lying on the internet for money is one thing, but he was so obsessed with Reddit that he did all of this for meaningless points. What's more, users estimated that he received over $1,000 worth of awards. Once again, this doesn't translate to real money, but it does mean that dozens of Redditors wasted their hard-earned cash on a story that was completely made up. What makes this situation bizarre is the fact that it wasn't even the first time it had happened. 1 year prior, a user on Our Teenagers had claimed to be dying of terminal brain cancer and received nearly $1,000 worth of Reddit awards as well. It describes a serious recount of his experience in the hospital before subverting the tone and referencing an internet meme about The Undertaker. The happiest moment on this sub was when in 1998, The Undertaker threw mankind off hell in a cell. After the troll, the young man offered a sincere apology, and many inevitably placed the blame on gullible Redditors for not seeing through the obvious joke. You would think that Redditors would have learned their lesson from the situation, but evidently they never did. I think what I've learned from making this video is that Reddit's sense of community is just as much a strength as it is a weakness. The desire to help each other is inherent amongst many subreddits, which can make for a useful experience for its users. But this sense of camaraderie makes way for bad faith actors to exploit its user base. These beggars are ultimately run off the website and are forced to do something that most Redditors would never think of: get a job. A big thanks again for MyHeritage for sponsoring today's video.